Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Leadership Voice podcast. I'm Enrique with my co-host Vince to bring you the best in our veteran, military spouse, and first responder community. And Vince will introduce today's guest.
Thanks, Enrique. Happy November again, everyone. We are here with Representative David Smith from Florida. He is actually here to honor the U.S. Marine Corps 247th birthday. Ow! To the Marines. Let's start off. Dave Smith, tell us a little bit about you.
Well, hey, it's great to be with y'all. Thank you for inviting me to join you on the podcast. And man, it's not like Marines need a reason, an extra reason to celebrate, but yeah, 247th anniversary of the Marine Corps, November 10th. And we're whooping it up here in Central Florida for our big Marine Corps ball, which is it's the real highlight of the season. More than all the other services, I think the Marine Corps ball is almost twice as big as any of the other balls, because we have a reserve unit, and we in the Central Florida Marine Corps Foundation work to raise money and get the troops to be able to come to the ball at no cost and a reduced cost, and it's a great time of fellowship with Marines, and I'm looking forward to it. And as you guys know, and maybe your viewers don't know, so I'm David Smith. I'm a state representative here in Central Florida, and it's my honor to serve the people of Seminole County up in the Florida legislature. But man, I tell you, it was a really great honor to have spent 30 years in the United States Marine Corps. Was a helicopter pilot, combat veteran in Iraq. I'm one of the few actual combat veterans serving in the legislature today in Florida. And it's also my privilege in the legislature to chair the Veterans Caucus, where we have 24 House and Senate members that are veterans, and we work on pro-veteran legislation, pro-military family legislation. And our goal is very simple, is to make Florida the most veteran-friendly state in our nation. So it's a pleasure to be with you.
And what a rich 30 years of service. That's not a small feat, David. It's amazing. Thank you for your service to the nation via the Marine Corps. I'm an aviation meteorologist, so I'm kin to those that are pilots in either the rotary or fixed wing. But I really am happy to be celebrating this birthday for the Marine Corps. Thank you for your service in and now out, which is a great thing to have a veteran leading the local legislature with veteran initiatives, right? Because most times we get different, but thank you for that. Now, in 30 years, I know you had a lot of leadership experience. You've been led and you have led. But what pivotal leadership moments do you learn the most from while you were in the Marine Corps?
Well, I'll tell you, and I've often said this, you learn from seeing things done right, and you also learn from seeing things done wrong. And I think we all, you kind of know what I'm talking about, where I know I had some great mentors, some great leaders, both as a young officer and moving up to retire at the rank of colonel. I still had mentors, peers and general officers that I valued their opinion. I still do, and we still talk. But we all learn as we go along, and we say, okay, when I get to be in command of, whether it's a aircraft commander or my helicopter, or command of a squadron, or wherever you move up the ladder, you remember things, and hopefully young officers or troops are writing these things down and reference them, so you can say, hey, when I get to in command, I'm going to do it this way. Or you're also writing it down and say, man, if I ever get command, I will not do it like that guy did. I remember when I was a junior officer, and I've continued to repeat this when I talk to groups of Marines, I just recently commissioned a young man as a second lieutenant, and others. And we all remember the green notebook. you know, like your platoon commander's little green notebook you get out of your S4, you know, and supply cabinet. But I had a guy tell me one time, says, you know, open the page and start making your book right after you raise your right hand and you come in the Corps, and start writing down all the things you learn from seeing it done right. And then flip it over and turn it upside down and start writing the back side and write what you learned from seeing it done wrong. And he says, your book will fill up more from what you think of seeing it done wrong, because we're more attuned to those kind of things. And then somewhere along the way, you develop a leadership style. You learn that if you give respect, you get respect. And man, I can tell you, you know, as an officer in particular, when I was a maintenance officer of a squadron or in command later in my career, that you relied on your staff NCOs, you listen to your NCOs, you let them do their jobs, and you let them make mistakes, and you also counseled them along the way. And that leadership's a team sport, but you know, at some point in time, somebody's in charge, and you got to be willing to step up when the time comes.
Absolutely. You know, bringing us back to that little green book. So you put a smile in our hearts for that one. But David Smith, you talked about great mentors. You are impacting and influencing several here in Florida, veterans and others. So thank you for that. So share with us who was instrumental, who impacted you while you served in the military.
Well, I tell you, I had a squadron commander that led from the front, you know, kind of all the tough missions. He was out there. And I'll tell you, and you guys may know what I'm talking about here. You probably do. Is we kind of butted heads. You know, I didn't think much of him. You know, in some of the administrative decisions, or I would look at him and go, "Ah, what's he thinking?" You know, because I'm that young JO that wants to fly everything, do everything, and it's all about flying. But he's got to command a squadron, and that was a composite squadron. Of different detachments, all under his command. And it wasn't really till you know, later, I realized what a great commanding officer he was. And we still have a relationship, and got a stronger relationship when I was no longer in his command, and as I moved up and got promoted. But you know, sometimes you don't value those lessons in leadership you're getting until you get a little perspective a little bit later. And then I can tell you the easy answer to your question, though, was the former commandant of the Marine Corps, General James Amos, Jim Amos, call sign Tamer, F-18 pilot. I worked for him in Iraq, and just a great man. Would follow him into a burning building, and we used to, when we were deployed, I was with the general on the advanced party to Kuwait, where we stood up 3rd Marine Aircraft Wing forward. At El Jaber was the jet. Salih Salem in Iraq was or Kuwait was for helicopters, and we built those bases up and then to fly the wing over before we kicked off Operation Iraqi Freedom. But I got to eat, you know, breakfast every day with the general, and lunch, and we PT together from time to time. And you know, I had the just deepest respect for him, and he would talk to you, and we'd just talk about whatever. And then he'd give you that, well, have you thought about this? Or have you considered looking into something, this here, you know? And he would throw out these things and ask his officers, task his officers to think bigger, think through the problem, and what's next? What's next? And that type of forward thinking is really helped me develop strategy, to think about unintended consequences of legislation that I might put forward. You know, General Amos was a great friend, still is, and a real mentor. And he helped me learn to think learn to think long range and strategy, and I'm in his debt for that.
Well, 30 years of service allows you those encounters, right, with great mentors, great leaders that can always deposit into you something for you to consider in the future. And so glad that you had those experiences. Now, in the Marine Corps, we've had 247 years. A lot has changed, right? A lot has developed. People have gotten smarter. Technology has advanced a lot. I wanted to ask you, during your service and what you're seeing now, how do you see and what do you see for the future of the Marine Corps?
Well, I tell you, I think the future of the Marine Corps is bright. Although the Marine Corps is going through a significant change right now, and with that change is turmoil, and there really is some disputes going on as the Marine Corps almost pivots back to our original maritime character. As we've gotten out of Iraq and we've gotten out of Afghanistan, the Marine Corps has divested itself of things that are normally associated with a land army, tanks being one of them, heavy things. The Commandant, General Berger, has been moving the Marine Corps back to lighter weight, less equipment, can't fit on a ship, we don't want it. That change has been it's been unsettling for a lot of people, and we know with any organization, change brings disruption, and that it's problematic. And I be honest with you, scratch my head on some of the decisions that have been made, and there's a lot more vocal general officers that much closer to it now than I am, that are looking at that and thinks we could be going too far, that the pendulum could swing too far back, because we want to be that 911 force for our nation. And when the Marine Corps gets called, you want to be able to bring combat forces to bear. And that's what's changing in the Marine Corps. We pivot again out of Iraq and Afghanistan, and we look more towards the rise of China is a threat in the Western Pacific, meaning we're going to have a resetting that maritime character of the Marine Corps. So a lot of this stuff's going to get settled out. It's changing some of the aviation policy also, and our manning policy of where do we need people? Because, as you point out, technology is changing and advancing at rapid pace. But I'm confident we'll have the Marines trained and the equipment that we'll need to answer the call, that 911 call, when our nation asks the Marine Corps to go forward again.
Well, I gotta say, Semper Fi, my brother, there, because the future is bright, as you mentioned right off the bat. But there is change in every force and technology and country. So we will answer the call, and the Marines, we do count on them as our 911, right? So we appreciate that perspective about the future of the Marines. Now let's transition, Dave, and talk a little bit about your leadership pearls of wisdoms that you have given and received over your time in the military. What would you like to share with the audience today?
Well, I can tell you when you get, whether you're new to command or you're new to an organization, it doesn't matter if you're an NCO getting in charge of a fire team or staff NCO and right on up to officers. I think you owe it to yourself, because we all are in that position. It's like, oh man, I can't wait to get my chance to command, or I can't wait till I'm in charge. I'm going to fix some things. And we all have that raring to go. Excuse me. But I'll tell you, I think it's usually smart to hang back a little bit, come in, meet everybody, get a sense of the organization. Again, it doesn't matter if it's a fire team or a squadron or depot command like I had, 4,000 Marines and civilians that I commanded at Cherry Point. And you come in and you let people learn who you are and what you're about, and you learn who they are, and you see how things have been run, and you point out and you find solutions together, and then you make changes that based on input that you get. And people are like, yeah, he knows what he's doing. Because if you come in and you're like, we're going to change this overnight, and you're going to do it this way, and it doesn't work out, you'll have one arm tied behind your back your entire time in command. So I always tell people to be a little bit constrained going in, and learn your people, learn your organization, but before you start making massive changes. And that's worked well for me, because I'll tell you, I've done it both ways. And I've come in and made decisions and had them blow back right in my face. When I had as a maintenance officer, which was probably the best job I ever had in the Marine Corps, was as a maintenance officer of HMLA 367, the Scarface squadron out at Camp Pendleton. And I had, a maintenance chief who was like, Skipper, why don't you do it? Let's talk about this a little bit. No, I know what I'm doing. And sure enough, he'd just walk into my office after something didn't work, and I'm like, yeah, okay, Top, what do you think? There's probably no wiser words have ever been spoken by a maintenance officer as, hey, Top, what do you think? You rely on other people's experience, because again, it's a team sport. You want to do right by those Marines. You want to do right by the boss that you're trying to please and move that squadron ahead, or whatever it may be. I had a blast doing it, and I learned from those mistakes. And man, I jotted that down in my little green notebook. Don't do it this way. Don't make those mistakes again. And I think, again, for 30 years, making it to the rank of colonel, getting command multiple times, the things that helped me on that path was learning from my own mistakes, seeing other people's mistakes and not making those myself. And it's a journey. It's a journey.
Great wisdom there. As being a top representative for the Navy, I remember those conversations and coming back and saying, Skipper, yeah, I try to tell you, brother. but
Yeah.
but it's always good, everybody learns and knows, and it's nice to have that type of a background to reflect off of. So thank you for sharing that. Now, as we celebrate another birthday for the Marine Corps, undoubtedly we're going to continue to celebrate these. And there are young men and women out there at the gate, right? They're on the fence. Do I join the military? Do I go this way, or do I go that way? There is a kind of shift from the sentiment when we were serving, right? We went in, freely with pride. Technology times have changed. So there are some, recruiting initiatives that are going on because there's a slow flow. But what would you advise for those that are coming in fresh, right? They're starting their career in the military?
Yeah, I tell you, a great question, and it doesn't matter if you're going to come in and spend 4 years, or stay for a career. And I tell people, which is the same advice my father gave me. My dad was a career Army officer, Vietnam veteran, and he told me, quit, get out when it quits being fun. And I stayed, 30 years. I enjoyed it. I'd start over tomorrow if they'd let me, but people coming in today, I tell you, young people still want that challenge. And I know recruiting is tough, and not tougher for the probably Army because they're the largest service, not so much for the Marine Corps because we're smaller. And people still want that challenge. Young men and women are still looking for the challenge. Somebody had told me the other day that there's a 9-month waiting list to get in to get into Marine Corps boot camp. So once you graduate high school and there's no, the GED or the judge made me go in, you've got to have gotten your degree, you've got to have probably excelled in sports or academics, then the Marine Corps lets you in. And once you raise your right hand and get sworn in, you're waiting to report to Parris Island or San Diego, that there's a backlog. of young people waiting to get in because they're still looking for that challenge. That's why I hope at least the Marine Corps doesn't change their recruiting effort to, hey, come get your college paid for, see the world, or something other. It's just, I think it really, we would probably be better off if we went back to, and I know you guys know what I'm talking about. Remember that recruiting poster of the drill instructor with the Smokey Bear hat, leaning into some recruit, doing the, I never promised you a rose garden, and it's hard. The Marine Corps is hard. It's tough. It takes a unique young man or woman to get through boot camp and go on. And again, doesn't matter whether you can, if you're up to meeting that challenge for 4 years or 30 years, we're looking for tough people that can solve our nation's problems and can lead troops in combat and be responsible for a lot of expensive gear and those kind of things. I think folks are up to that task. I have the highest confidence in the Marine Corps going forward, and it will do the right thing to recruit the right kind of young men and women that we're looking for to build on that heritage of 247 years of Marine Corps. And hey, it's a good time too. You're going to meet lifelong friends. And that's the other thing with the Marine Corps. Maybe we all know from no matter what service you've served in, but I don't know. Obviously, I'm a little prejudiced as a Marine, but you know that bond just feels just a little bit stronger with a fellow Marine that you might meet in the grocery store and they're wearing a retired Marine hat, or you see a patch, on somebody's arm that you recognize from a deployment or something along those lines, and it's you can stick out your hand and say, simplify, devil dog, and have an immediate connection. And I respect that. I cherish that, and I try to honor that through my actions now in the legislature to try to help veterans. And it's I don't know. Feels like we're on the right path now, but. I'm real pleased to have served and continue to serve where I'm at in the Florida legislature.
Well, first, thank you for sharing your pearls of wisdom, your history in the United States Marine Corps, 247 years. And I would say the force is strong with you, Luke, because the strength of the Marines is impactful throughout. You can see it. True story. I saw two individuals had a heated discussion. They were going to go at it. They both found out they were Marines. They started hugging each other. It's phenomenal, that camaraderie that you see with brothers and sisters of arms, especially from the Marine Corps. Little jealous Air Force here, but I'm honored to work and be side by side with my brothers and sisters of the Marines. So folks listening in, I hope you gathered a lot of knowledge. You get a little green book, turn it upside down and write on it, as David Smith mentioned. But how do folks get a hold of you, David, if they would like to do so?
Yeah, they can always, easy to find me, david.smith@myfloridahouse.gov is my email address. Or, I do a lot of social media stuff, and I tell people, just, call me at home, so 407-542-4361 is my home phone number. And I every piece of political literature or stuff, it's on all my business cards and those kind of things. And I'm probably the last guy in Florida that still has a landline, but that's the way I can stay connected. And I check messages, and I try to call people back within a day. So if you're having some issue in Florida, or you just want some thoughts, happy to call and talk to you about that. Tell you, I get a lot of people that have heard about me, that are veterans that are looking to maybe run for office, and they're city in Iowa, or the county in Kansas, or hey, I might run for Congress in Washington state, and so at all different levels. And so folks call me all the time, say, hey, I hear you you run and won, you're a veteran, and this is what I think. And I counsel people from all over the country veterans who want to use that service and maybe transition that into additional public service in the political process at all levels. And they're certainly welcome to call me, and I can tell them, you know, the mistakes I've made, because man, I tell you, I've made every one of them, but I only made those mistakes once. And it's better you learn from my mistakes than have to repeat them yourself. So I help veterans all over the country try to run for office too.
Well, folks, we're going to have that information as part of the show notes and the video. But if you want to get a hold of the Leadership Void, the leadershipvoid@gmail.com is where you'll send that inquiry. If you want to suggest a speaker or maybe have us cover a leadership topic as one of our shows, please send it to there, and we'll be glad to doing that.
And absolutely. And a couple of things. We do Radio Check, which is the 1st and the 15th of every month. It's a time for us to galvanize with our brothers and sisters of both the military and first responder community on LinkedIn Live, 1900, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Check us out there. And also, we're grateful for our sponsor, VEI, for sponsoring this show and having great guests celebrating 247 years of the United States Marine Corps. David Smith, thank you for being our guest, and wish you another 247 years strong.
Yeah, thanks, Vince and Ricky. Great being with you. Anytime.